Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you've been watching the videos about the... that was dumb. That was dumb. Every tool's a hammer, unless it's a screwdriver, then it's a chisel.
We need a torch. Hate that nut.
We're not doing that. Because it ain't built till it's overbuilt. Me and my buddy Dave have been digging in an old gravel bed looking for some trucks that were buried. So just stop right now, okay? Go back to my channel and watch the videos that are labeled The Big Dig. There's a couple of them now. By the time this is over, there's probably going to be 6 because it's actually turning into a big dig. Anyways, last weekend, looking for that, we found these instead, which was pretty cool. It was a 2-sided Firestone sign. I gave one half to Dave. I'm keeping one half to hang on our garages, and they're pretty neat. They're from the 20s, the mid to late 20s. They were at the local hardware store in town here. They were apparently a Firestone dealer because Birch and Kilmer was the name of the local hardware back in that time. They look presentable, but actually a lot of that stuff looks like it's going to come off fairly easy. They're porcelain signs, so I really don't think I can hurt them with the buffer. I'm just going to take one, see how it goes, and if it looks all right, I'll do Dave's too and take it over to his house and drop it off. You know, right now I got a few still photos I took. I should have took video once we found it and dug it up. I'm not very good at this, let's face it. So right here, I'll stick in the still shots. So this first one, that was our very first glimpse of it. Dave just barely hit it with the backhoe bucket, and we saw it and stopped, and then he dug around it a little bit more and got where he could get in, and then we could see this much here. And then finally we finished cleaning around it and got it all the way pulled out, and we could see the whole thing. So it was a 2-sided sign. It was a sign on each side of a frame. The frame got bent by the backhoe pretty bad, and it was in really bad shape. It was rusted through in a couple of spots, so it really wasn't usable anyway. I unbolted them, and believe it or not, they were brass screws. I didn't break a single screw taking those signs apart. And so I took them apart, set the frame aside. I was thinking maybe I'd put them back together someday, but I think it's a better idea. We'll give one to Dave and keep one here. I'm going to hang it on the front of my shop. And so I'm gonna just throw it on the sawhorse and see what it looks like after I tear into it with the buffer. I don't think I can hurt it. I think it'll only get better. A lot of what's on it is just rust stains because there was like a whole bunch of other crap buried. This was a dump, there was tin cans and stuff up against it, and they just stained it. I really think that's all it is. So we're gonna see what happens. Stand by. Yeah, so I figured I'd bring you in here for a look. So if you look close, a lot of this stuff looks like rust, but it's really, I think it's mostly somebody else's rust. That came off of whatever was touching here. Some of it is, like these are blisters, they're rust, the sign is rusting. But I think some of it is gonna come off. And a lot of the blue, I think will get more bluer with a little buffing. So, like up there, I think this stuff comes off. Just pressure washer wouldn't take it off, but I think it will come off. All right, we about to find out, as they say. Yeah, you know, that ain't half bad. It's not a miracle worker. My buddy Jordan told me you really won't hurt it buffing it, and also that you can take a razor blade to it. I got tons of rust off that was just stuck to it with the razor blade. So imagine that. My buddy Jordan knows what he's talking about. But yeah, I mean, it's probably twice as bright as it was. It's far from perfect. A lot of this I just couldn't get off. Just don't come. But, you know, I probably exposed about half again as much of the white that was covered by rusty color, and that's what brightens it up, you know. So I think it looks good. I'll probably wash it when we get another warm day. It's kind of cold now, but I'll just give it a wash and a coat of regular car wax, and I'll get her hung up on the garage. I like that. It looks good. I'm gonna do Dave's now. His is over there. Get that done and drop it off. I learned, well, my friend Mike, who's actually related to these Birch and Kilmer, they were brothers-in-law that ran the hardware store, and my friend Mike is related to them, and he did some homework for me and found out a couple interesting things. First of all, they owned the Saucony station in town, which eventually was Mobil. So Saucony was Standard Oil Company of New York, and they owned it early, like 1917 or so. I'm not sure how many years they owned it, but they ended up selling that and buying the hardware store right across the street, which is still there. And they ran it as Birch and Kilmer Hardware. And the reason I think this sign hung at the hardware is because, you see this? Beaver Enameling Company in Elwood City, Pennsylvania. That's who made the sign. There's no date on it. A lot of times there'll be a date also, but there isn't. But I did Google them, and there's not much info, but I did learn, at least according to the interwebs, which would never lie, that company was only in business from the 20s to the early to mid 30s. So if that's true, that puts this sign too new to have been on the gas station when they started it in the 19-teens. And I know from old photographs that they did sell tires and oil at the hardware store. The photos don't have this sign. They have a Goodyear sign, but at some point they must have switched to Firestone, and this was their sign. It was a two-sided sign, and it hung, you know, the frame that it was in had hooks on the top, so it most likely hung, you know, over the sidewalk, and had, you know, maybe had lights on it or something, although actually, no, back then there was no electric light in the village, I don't believe yet. It's intriguing to me when you start thinking about what it was like back. I mean, I've learned a lot about local history, and I know what it was like, but when you look at something like this, you go, oh, they probably had a light on it. No, they probably didn't, because they probably didn't have electric lights yet. But that's the local history take on this. If you're from around these parts and you're interested in that sort of thing, this was most likely on the current Argyle hardware store building way back. If you go on Facebook, there's a page called Argyle History Group, and if you go in that group, there's a lot of good old photographs in there. Like I said, I haven't found one of this exact sign yet, but most likely one will pop up. But you can get a good look. There is one of the hardware store with a Goodyear sign, and it's got to be, you know, pretty much exactly what it looked like back then. Enough of that. I'm going to get on to Dave's sign here and get it out of my shop, get it over to his house. So this all stems from the Big Dig. Like I said, you want to go back and watch those videos. I'm trying to keep my videos shorter, so they're easier to watch. So there's 2 videos as of right now on there. But I had an interesting phone call from a guy who's a Linn tractor collector, and he loves Linn tractors. He was a logger, and I think he's 89. I think he most likely used a Linn tractor, at least for a while, logging. He owns several, and So he called me Sunday to see if I had found my land tractor, which I hadn't, obviously. And it was an interesting phone call. But, he said he's a witch. He witches for water, dowser, whatever you want to call it. And he thinks he can witch for that truck. And so he's going to come up this coming Saturday, as long as the weather's decent. And we're going to walk around the pit. He thinks if there's a piece of iron, he'll be able to locate it. So maybe this ain't over. I don't know. We're going to have to see what he thinks about it. And then, like I had said before, the place where I think it is in a place where we'd have to be awfully careful to not cave in some trees that the landowner wants to save. It's possible that we could dig some without worrying about the trees. I don't know if we could ever dig enough to find these trucks if they're there. I don't know if you've heard or not, but I love picking through an old dump. The older dump, the better. And this is an old dump. And of course, now we found a couple cool things. We found the old gas lantern from the village when the streets were lit with gas. We found an old cast iron hitching post, which I'm going to fix up and put at Town Hall. And we found this cool old sign. So what else might be in there? I don't know. My buddy Dave, he's probably not even my buddy anymore. I don't know what's going to happen. He's probably going to divorce me. I don't know what I'm going to do. Enough of that. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you spending your time with me. Tell your friends they need to watch. I feel like a broken record. They need to be watching The Town Tinker. Text them right now. Text 2 people. If you text 2 people right now and you get them to watch and subscribe, then I'll be getting paid by YouTube. Heck, I'll be rolling in it. I'll quit my job and just dig up old dumps for a living. God bless you. God bless the United States of America.